the portrait of Emile Zola. Emile Zola was a pretty cool guy. It, just, just to put that straight right there. This is a portrait by Manet. Manet, okay, famous portrait of a famous guy, famous Frenchman, a writer, a controversial writer, sort of a rebel. Got himself exiled and everything else in the very late 19th century. Oh, I don't know if you know, I'm not a big expert on Emile Zola, only as much as I sort of always knew from just, basic, you know, liberal arts education. There was a big scandal in France in the late 1800s, and somebody was there was great polarization in France because there were those that really wanted France to be a military colonial asshole of the world. They had themselves the Devil's Island and everything else. Devil's Island is part of this story even. And there were those that were progressive and embraced the ideals of the republic, the democratic people's kind of thing. And the military, a general, literally framed a publisher, a Jewish publisher, with sort of an anti-Semitic thing. They framed him for treason. Okay. And he went to Devil's Island, and it was just, but he was innocent, totally innocent. And the military guy that framed him forged a bunch of documents, and Emile Zola busted him. Was like the whistleblower. Okay, he was like the Intercept or one of WikiLeaks, and Zola wrote this insanely cool article called J'accuse, and it all worked out. He was a big hero, and he got himself exiled for a while too, and he came back. Anyway, this has absolutely very little to do with Zola himself, but has everything kind of to do with this portrait. And I've titled today's talk, "The Magic of Method Acting," because in 1970, when I was 22 years old, this is, I have been into sort of like Yogananda and all of the sort of Eastern mysticism stuff that taking LSD in 1970s or 67. No, it's 66 actually. I took LSD and was inspired by the spiritual aspects of the psychedelic revolution, and so I was into Alan Watts and Timothy Leary, and they sort of led to Yogananda and the writings of Vivekananda. And I'd been doing the I Ching for several years too. So, but it was before Magick. It was before Crowley. It was before the Rosicrucians or the Martinists. It was pretty much before everything. And at the time, I was a songwriter and a recording artist. Okay. I think we signed with Epic Records around 1969, maybe. Yeah. And we were going to Hollywood quite regularly to CBS to record. So I was bouncing back and forth. And we got our album released. It was recorded in 1970 and was kind of doing the Hollywood thing. And but even my writing with my partner Charles Harris, we were inspired. We inspired ourselves by getting ourselves good and high on good Afghani hashish and having occult conversations or spiritual conversations. And several times we just reached for an occult dictionary and opened it at random and bibliomancied the title of our next song and that we would write. And but also at this same time, this is before Jean Paul was born in 72, I had taken a friend to Hollywood because he wanted to apply to attend to be a student at the Lee Strasberg Film and Theater Institute that had just opened a Los Angeles Hollywood campus, if you will. Now, I don't know if you know much about Lee Strasberg, but literally the god of acting coaches. Okay, every big name, wild and crazy, cutting edge actors of the day were studied at the Actors Studio in the Actors Studio. It was in New York, but they studied under Strasberg. Okay, Marlon Brando, there's everybody. And it was big excitement in Hollywood when he opened up a campus in Hollywood, right on Hollywood Boulevard, right across the street from Fredericks of Hollywood. But anyway, a friend of mine that I met through the music wanted to apply. Okay, at this. He was interested in drama and theater, and he wanted to be an actor. Now, I never wanted to be an actor. Okay, I'm too lazy. Okay, but he needed a ride. His car had conked out, and he needed a ride, and asked if I'd give him a ride up to Hollywood. And I've told you this story before. It was too hot for me to sit in the car, so I sat in the lobby of the Institute, which was literally right old Hollywood across the street from Fredericks and Hollywood Boulevard, upstairs in a 1930s era radio studio. I mean, with portholes on the door and stuff. And I think Jack Benny and a few other classic radio shows were there. So it was just steeped in Hollywoodness, you know. And I was pretty spiritually resonant to the early Hollywoodness because I don't know whether it was because of DNA or something, but I had reason to at least consider that I am the incarnation of my own great uncle, who was the private secretary to Hal Roach, the great silent and early sound movie producer. Anyway, and so I tried to sit out in the car for a while and smoke some hash. Okay. And But it got so hot that I decided, well, I'm going to go in where it's probably air conditioning. I'm going to wait. And in the lobby. And the lobby was totally empty. They had already called in my friend and were interviewing him. And I was just sitting there thumbing through Variety. And the guy with who the only way I can't remember his name right now, but a couple of years after this, he would be the guy that wakes up with a horse's head in his bed in The Godfather. That actor. He stuck his head out the door, out of one of the porthole doors, and said, "You're next." And I wasn't applying or anything. I was just sitting there, but I was so stoned, I thought, why not? And I've told you this story a million times. I went in and Gerald S. McLaughlin asked me, "Why do you want to be an actor?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to be an actor, man. I just want to live, you know. I just want to live and I think we're all here just to do something, and I just want to be able to do something the best I can." Yeah, I gave some hippy dippy kind of thing. I don't want to be an actor answer, and that's just what they wanted to hear. And they signed me up, and all of a sudden I was going to the Lee Strasberg Film and Theater Institute 3 times a week. Strasberg himself taught the Monday seminar, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, it took me that long to set this up. One of the things that Strasberg himself made clear to us was that acting isn't acting. Acting is a connection to truth. Connecting with truth. It's such a spiritual thing that you should call it religion. And the techniques and the tricks you do, you know, because acting is a job that you do well or you don't do well, and there's tricks to connecting with this truth that also can translate well into a theatrical performance. And the thing that he drove home one afternoon at a seminar was that if anything at all is going on in your mind, and he didn't call it mind, but if there's anything truthful, a memory, a feeling, a dream, a taste, if anything truthful is happening at a split second in your mind, it beams out of you. It projects out of you a certain glow, a certain ray of just truth's in here, truth's going on, truth. And it's so subtle that you can't put you can't make a face to no. If something true is going on, anything you're doing is broadcasting truth, and people see it. People are aware of it. People are affected by it. And if you like an actor, if you've memorized your part, you've memorized your blocking, you know what you have to say, you know what your character's motivation is and where they're coming from and everything else. You got all of that down, but that's mechanics. If you deliver all of that, as if your body and your delivery and your voice and everything else was almost like an automaton playing the thing, if you got one of those truth things happening inside, the audience interprets that truth in the context of the play, in the context of your lines, in the context of your behavior on stage. The audience does all the work. All you have to do is connect to truth. And that's pretty much magic. And I actually asked, because I didn't understand what magic was anyway, okay, but I actually used the words when he was taking questions. I said, "Isn't this magic?" And he said, "Yes, I guess it's magic." Well, what does all this have to do with Dreyfus and Emile Zola? What's all of this have to do with that? There are standard exercises to train the actor, and some of them were founded by Stanislavski and hybridized by Strasberg himself. But one of the exercises is called the song and dance. You jump up and down on one foot while you sing a song, okay? And the idea is it's one of those things that help you strip away all the things that you're not, okay? You can't be too phony while ridiculously standing on one foot. And I think my song was The Workers' Flag. I jump up on one foot. The workers' flag is deepest red. It's shrouded oft our martyred dead. And there's other exercises, but one exercise is called the portrait, and we had a week to prepare for this because we each had to get up on stage to do the exercise, and it's a portrait. And it's a portrait of anybody, okay? And portraits are usually, well, like this, okay? They usually look posed and stiff, and but they're like a screen capture of a moment, okay? And it was a long enough moment for a painter to actually paint it. But the exercise was you're supposed to pick a portrait, bring a copy of the portrait with you, who you're doing, and in probably about between 3 and 5 minutes, you have to position yourself so that you naturally fall into that pose. Okay. You have to make that pose not a pose, but a moment of truth. It's quite an exercise. So, me being active in the anti-war movement and the peace movement and singing the workers' flag and everything else, the idea of this literary giant hero of free thought, Emile Zola, and I found the portrait of Emile Zola, and I said, that's going to be my portrait. And I had a beard at that time. It was pretty thin in those days, and dark, and my hair, of course, was dark. I was only 22, and so isn't this a cool look at all of that impressionistic things that inspired the Impressionists, all those Japanese art things. Okay, and there's like a Chinese or Japanese screen in the back there. Everybody was into Japanese stuff in the Belle Epoque. Um, but anyway, I got myself a black suit. I think I used the big book of the, I had a copy of Manly Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. It was a big oversized book, similar to that. Got a black suit, a white shirt, although we can't see his shirt very well, but I had a white shirt with sort of one of those French string type things. Had a pair of black slacks, some shoes. Okay, and all I would need is what stage props that were already at the studio. But I brought a few books from home to scatter on a table like that. And I just used one of the chairs that were at the studio, set the thing up. It only took about a minute or so to set it up. I went to the French bakery and I bought a baguette. Okay, a baguette. And the idea was that Emile Zola had been out in the morning, perhaps went to the library, stopped off for his morning baguette kind of thing. I walked through the door from stage right, and I put my baguette down like I'm, just got in preparing that. I put my baguette down. I sit down at the desk. I cross my leg. I open up the book. As if I'm just in too much of a hurry to eat my little nibble of breakfast, open up the book, look at it for a second, and then look up thoughtfully. And so the audience sees that in profile. It's just, I hold it only for maybe 2 seconds. And when I hit it and everybody sees what it was, then there's the scattering of applause from the other students that, okay, got it. That's the snapshot. And that's my story. I was never after high school. I was never in a play or anything else. I've never used my acting training in any sort of professional program or anything ever since. But it taught me a great deal about magic, and it taught me a great deal about truth and self-truth. And only years later, when I have the luxury of retrospect, the idea of how the rest of my life would progress from that point, especially my career as a writer, and still my attitudes about social injustice. And I didn't know how big a fan I should have been. Mostly I was thinking about my beard and the baguette. But anyway, that's my story for today. Portrait of Lon as Emile Zola. And I'll see you tomorrow for Saturday morning cartoons. I'm going to talk more about that Ankh tomorrow. Until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. J'accuse!